So we're starting past tense, passive verb. We done active verb. Now we done past tense for it. Then we done fi'l mudari, which is present and future. We also done imperative, prohibition, which is telling somebody not to do, negation, and various different sort. And we done active participle. So for fa'ilun is for knowing how to form the doer, right? Just give me 1 second. So active participle, the key thing in active participle was that the subject was always known. So whether it will be a separate, written separately to the verb. So whether it be, Zaid, Bakr, Fatima, or men, and so forth. Or sometimes it was hidden inside the verb. So in the case, in that case, it was normally pronouns which were doing the action. So he is writing, or he was writing, and so forth. Now in Arabic, we also have what we call the passive verb, or in Arabic we call it majhul. The active, the one where we know the doer, we call it active verb, or in Arabic we call it ma'loom. Ma'loom means known. The reason why we use ma'loom is because we know the doer, and majhul is where we don't know the doer. Okay. So for example, and the way it's written is different to the way the active verb is written. So example, doing the past tense first. When we say kataba, he means he wrote, right? Because we understand kataba is the active verb. So whenever kataba is written, the subject, I used to call it, we call it subject, but you could call it the person who's doing the action, the doer, must be present. So kataba means he wrote, because it doesn't say kataba Zaidun, Bakrun, so forth. But it's implied that there is hidden inside here. So it means he wrote. Now in Arabic, what we do is to make a passive verb, we add dhamma on the first participle and kasra on the second participle in the past tense. So dhamma and on the first participle and kasra on the second participle. And this is same whatever verbs they have on the active participle, because we have kataba, but sometimes we have alima, for example. Alima. Here, there's fatha on the second root letter, but here there's kasra. But when we make this is active verb, okay? He knows, or he knew. However, when you make it passive, it's the same scale for all of them. The first letter will have dhamma. When you first letter, we mean the first root letter will have dhamma, and then second root letter will have kasra. Uli ma. It was known. So here, if you notice the difference between the translation, kataba means he wrote, or kataba Zaidun, Zaid wrote, or kataba rijalun, kataba ar-rijalu, the men wrote. Kutiba simply means it was written. Okay. For example, if you say kataba khitaban, khitabun means a letter. Khitaban here is accusative because it's the object of kataba. He wrote a letter. So we can simply if you want to make it passive, so we don't want to mention he wrote, we just want to say it a letter was written, we say kutiba khitabun. Now khitabun appears to be the subject of kutiba, right? In English we just say subject as previously, but in Arabic there's distinction because we will call this naib file, which means the deputy of the of the file. Because what's file again? Anybody?
File is the doer.
Yeah, so it's a loose translation. So file is the person who done the action. We say naib file, it means deputy of the file. Why we say that is because the subject will be marfu, right, or nominative, as with same with the active verb. So it sort of resembles in terms of vowing, kataba rajulun, a man wrote, right? But the difference here is obviously there is we said naib because it's not a full file because we don't know the person who done the action, but we call it naib file because in terms of vowing, its subject follows the rule of what was the rule of in the active verb. Does that make sense? Please, if it doesn't make sense, just yeah.
In simple means actually what we learned was kutiba was the object. What we learned earlier before passive this topic was done.
Yeah.
Okay. But now we have to consider it as dhamma on it, right?
Consider it as?
Yes, sir.
Say it again. Consider it.
Now we have to consider it with dhamma. Earlier we used to take it as fatha, mansub, as it was the object.
Yes, it was object. Yes. Okay. But do you see the difference? Why?
But kutiba is already over here as object. It's accusative. Only the kitab, the letter has become nominative. Over here, they're describing the nominative form of kitab, isn't it?
Ask again. Say it again.
Like over here, it's telling you that the letter was written. It's discussing. You are discussing the kitabun as a subject, although it's not the subject. It's not the one who's doing the action, just because of the sign, the vowels on the top. Like it's nominative. That's why we are calling it the deputy of the doer, isn't it?
Yeah. So okay. Yes. The subject. Okay. So see the terms we use in English. They are a bit problematic because they can cause confusion sometimes. But I use the English terms to make it easier for you guys. Subject, I said in a verb was the doer. That's only the case when the verb is active. Okay. When it's passive, when the verb is active, when the verb is ma'loom, when the fa'il is ma'loom. When the fa'il is not ma'loom, then we may call it subject, or you may call, let's call it na'ib fa'il. Let's not call it subject. We call it na'ib fa'il. Is that okay? So we call it na'ib fa'il. We're not going to call it subject. So here, it's not khitaban. Why is it not khitaban? Because it's kutiba khitabun. Because khita, if you write is khitaban, it would imply that there is a doer, but there is no doer. So we're just talking about some. Normally, it will be it was written. What was written? Khitabun. The letter was written. A letter was written. Does it make sense?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. In passive, there will be never actor mentioned, right?
Well, in the passive verb, whether it's past or present, the actor will not be mentioned. The person doing the action will not be mentioned. That's the whole point of passive. Active, we call it active. Ma'loom. Ma'loom means when the doer is known. passive is known as majhul. Like it comes from jahil. Jahil means ignorant, right? Ignorant is when you don't know nothing, and ma'lum comes from ilm. Ilm when you know. So ma'lum is when you know the person. So this is active is translated from ma'lum, and passive is translated from majhul. So here you know the doer. Here you will not know the doer. You could still ask. It's okay. You know, we have time. So if you have questions, feel free to ask. Okay, so if you don't asking questions, that means you understand. Then it gives another example. So if you say darabani, here daraba is the active verb, and ni is the object. Darabani, he struck me. Or you could say duribtu, I was struck. You make it majhul or passive. How do we do that? Dhamma on the first letter of the verb, first root letter of the word, and kasra on the second root letter. That's in the past tense. So simply on scale of fu'ila. Fu'ila. Okay. Fu'ilat, fu'ilata. And I would like you both to for the next lesson to write this out in full. So write the passive. So I may ask you to read passive for fataha and past passive, past passive, and you'll say ana duribtu, I was struck. Nahnu duribna, we were struck. Anta duribta, you were struck, and so forth. Does it make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And in imperfect, we also have passive. So yaktubu means he writes. Yuktabu means it is being written. He has a subject, he writes. Obviously, there's no subject in passive because we say it's majhul, it's unknown. So yuktabu means it is written. And how do you make majhul? Majhul, you make the sign of majhul in imperfect is that the lamat al-majhul, or the sign of majhul, which is first letter, will take dhamma. So here, and then this then the what we call the second root letter. The first root letter will be normal. The second root letter will always have a fatha. So this is saying whether is yaktubu or if it's yadribu. It's same. It'll be yudrabu.
But in short, sir, if any form of word is starting with like dhamma, so we should consider it as a majhul.
Not necessarily, because for time being, what we've done so far, it will apply. But when we do the next chapter, you will learn verbs which may have dhamma at the starting, not in the past tense, but we're talking about present tense or future tense, fil mudare, but they're still active. But those are different form of verbs. But at this time, everything we've done, your rule will apply. So it's simple. It's not hard. There's the first majhul. First one has dhamma. Second root that has kasra. Mudare, the alamatul mudare will take dhamma, and the second root letter will take a fatha. Again, I would like you both to write this out in full, and you'll read, inshallah. Next, I'm going to ask you both to read these two before we start lesson. Okay, another example. Yadribuka, he strikes you, or he is striking you, or he will strike you. Tudrabu, you are struck. You are being struck, or you will be struck. So here it says tudrabu. Does that make sense? So here we know the subject or the file, the person doing the action, he. Here we don't know, we just know the person being struck. So does that make sense? Okay, this comes as the table. So here says duribtu, ana duribtu, right? Nahnu duribna. It doesn't have to be full table, but I think, do you think you could write the table yourself based on what we discussed? It should be quite easy, I think. If you
Yes,
if you struggle, then send me a question. I will do for you, or I will help you. And similarly, when we talk about we talk about subjunctive or jussive. So if you remember, jussive is when it has jazm at the end. Subjunctive is when it has fatha at the end. Like when you say lan adriba, you will I will not hit, or lan tadriba, you shall not hit. So here we could lan can be used with passive as well, and it will take the same rule. So it'll be, for example, lan tudraba. So because all these particles, whether it's lan, lam, la, they only affect the ending. So here, like here, is affecting the ending. Lan tudraba, you will not be struck, or you shall not be struck. Lan makes it future negation. Or if you say lam, then it will be lam tudrab, for example. You was not struck. So these particles still apply to majhul as well, to passive verbs. Does that make sense? Okay. So we done what we call active participle. So does anyone do you remember how to make an active participle? What's active participle? Come on, we discussed this a few times.
so I didn't get what you asked me.
What how to form active participle in Arabic for the verbs we done?
On the scale of Foila?
And scale of
Foila?
what is active participle? What am I talking about? So
So
do
are
we?
we talking about like Katibun, like
Yes.
the writer? Kataba, he wrote, and Katibun is the writer.
Yes, that's what I'm
We
talking.
should know to do that.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
No, it is the scale of Fa'ilun.
Yeah. So you should be learning terms as I explain, because it seems like, when I mention the terms, both of you don't know what I'm talking about. Because when you come and learn the lesson, you should, when you go back, you should be as if you was to teach to somebody else the same lesson, you should be able to do it comfortably. That's the criteria you should use to know how well you understood the lesson. So the passive participle, and obviously because these terms, when I say passive participle, and if I just explain without asking you what is active participle, it's not going to make sense, because if you don't remember what was active participle, you know, when you say passive participle, it's in relation to active participle. So what's the difference? But if you don't know the active participle, or if you don't know what I was talking about, then you're not going to know, you're not going to understand passive participle correctly. So here, we said active participle, or the doer, was on the scale of fa'ilun. For the verbs we done fa'ilun, for the simple triliteral verbs. What do you mean by simple triliteral verbs? Words which have 3 root letters. So at the moment we have only done words which have 3 root letters and no additional letters. Fa'ilun. Katibun means writer. Daribun means hitter, and so forth. And past participle, passive participle. We don't say past. It's a passive participle is on scale of maf'ulun. Okay. So for example, madrubun means struck. Daribun was striker. Madrubun means struck. So it's as if it's like it's not doer, but it's rather it's whose the action is done upon. Madrubun, struck. Maftuhun, opened. And it says it's declined like other nouns, and normally it takes sign plural, which means with waw and noon, or ya and noon, if it's a accusative or genitive. You remember what sign plurals are?
Yes, sir.
The one in which we can just add few words and form a plural form, sound plural.
Yeah. Lesson will finish. I will join again. The 40 minutes are coming up, so it's gonna start again.